we are joined by Dr. Oz this morning.
Yes, the very famous Dr. Oz, and he's here to talk to us about something that's in the news a lot lately. A lot of people worried about the coronavirus, COVID-19. So I think the big scare, Dr. Oz, is just people now that are traveling and thinking about having to board a plane.
We can see the level of panic increasing with the stock market drop today.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I think it's also reflective of a deeper appreciation that we don't control our destiny. Iconically, in our psyche, it was always infections that we feared. And even today, if you ask the true experts on calamity, what their biggest fears are, tornado, hurricanes, nuclear weapons, terrorist attacks, none of those things. It's a global pandemic that kills a swath of the American or human population that we can't get our arms around. This is not it. That's not what's happening here. But what catalyzed the panic overnight was that Italy and Iran and South Korea now have dramatically increased caseloads. I mean, from nothing to hundreds of cases over 3 or 4 days. So they're where China was in the very beginning, not quite understanding what's happening. And so they're shutting themselves down. It's raising havoc with travel. People aren't going on cruises anymore because they get trapped on cruise boats, as Dennis he's talked about, has been stuck. And there's not much to do on a cruise if you're not moving for 2 weeks in a row. You're just sitting in your cabin with no internet. So I think there's much to be said about this virus. The big message I want to offer today is don't believe the conspiracy theories. I've spoken to all the top scientists. This is not some weaponized virus. A lot of these remedies that are being thrown out there aren't going to be effective. But thankfully, the virus is not that dangerous. It's about a 0.2% mortality rate. It's 10 times more than the flu has been devastating, but it's just a fraction of what SARS was and MERS was and these other coronaviruses of their day.
So we've talked to the people here in Utah that have gotten it. Well, they're not here in Utah right now, that have gotten it. They said, well, I felt fine, the whole time.
What's tricky about this virus is oftentimes symptoms are so subtle you don't even know you have it when you're contagious. So you're walking around, not sneezing on people, but just touching them, because the virus doesn't travel that well through a sneeze. It actually lands on a surface, and then someone else touches that surface. But the coronavirus lives for 9 days on a surface compared to the flu, which is only 2 days. So it's very rapidly transmitted. But once you get it, most young people, healthy folks have no issues with it. They get mild gastrointestinal symptoms, seeming like a head cold. Once in a while it gets into the lungs, but it's not devastating. It's the older folks who are already frail. 40% of the mortalities in the main Chinese hospital where this all was reported were already in the hospital before the flu got there. So you're already in the ICU struggling to stay alive, then you get the flu on top of it, the coronavirus, COVID-19, and you're not going to do so well.
So it is similar to the flu in that it's the vulnerable populations that need to worry.
And it tends to be the older population more than the kids, although there have been some kids that died. But, this is the worst epidemic for kids dying of the traditional flu in a decade. And now we're over 100 cases, and unfortunately, that's because this strain of the flu that's really problematic for kids is hit the country a little harder than usual and a little earlier than usual. But the good news is the flu vaccine, just to digress for a second, is cutting down symptoms and the mortality rate, hospitalization rates by 50%. Which is huge, and better than it's been in past years.
That's some good news.
So it's a pretty good target this year, and that's, I think, also reflective of what's going to happen with coronavirus. Because coronavirus isn't going away. It's going to be endemic. It's going to be in our population. It'll ultimately be the warm weather, which is hopefully going to slow it down a lot, and the vaccine, which we'll have in 6 months, which will knock it back.
So a lot of people, you mentioned, are afraid of getting on a cruise ship, but flights as well right now. Everybody's worried about getting on a flight. You hear somebody behind you coughing. How likely is it that you're going to get something, and where do we need to be on the flight to avoid getting some of this stuff?
On the show this week, you see this little image here.
Yeah.
This is about the air quality on planes, and we have something called a germ zone. But the air of the plane comes from 2 places, from outside the plane, and also the internal air is circulated through a HEPA filter. So 50% of the air is recirculated, 50% is from outside, which is already clean. So the air you're getting is 99.7% pure and clean and not going to have viruses in it. But there's a germ zone. The people with the row in front of you, the row behind you are in that germ zone. And when they're sneezing, coughing, and hacking, those virus particles can migrate their way towards you. So here's what I say. First off, don't get dry. If your nose is dry, your eyes are dry, your mouth is dry, the membranes will crack, the virus can get in. So stay hydrated, hydrated. And the second big point is take that air nozzle above your head and blow it right at your chest. That actually pushes the air away from your face, keeps clean air from the filter coming in your nose. That'll, we believe, help reduce the incidence of you getting a virus from some person next to you.
And the window seat is a good seat, huh?
Best seat's window seat.
Why is the window seat?
That's my favorite seat. I always get the window seat.
Because if you're in the window seat, you're isolated from the other side of the aisles, people who might be ill. Whereas if you're in the aisle, you get it from both the people on your window and the other window because you're close enough to them that you're in their germ zone.